huge amount of assumptions in this. There always is. However, I will say that I think it's a telltale sign that when you jump into a game, it's your first impressions, and you assume things like instantaneously, like, oh, this game looks usual. But even in your like first 15 minutes of playing, or first 30 minutes or whatever, I played for like 3 hours because I was having so much fun. It's really cool to see your expectations instantaneously being broken up and smashed and crushed, okay? So yeah, Riders of Icarus, I definitely am impressed. My first impressions are impressed, okay? So let's talk about some things in the game. We can't talk about everything, like the end game, the rating, the PvP. There will be PvP, and the end game is probably going to be epic. I will say the game is probably focused on the end game content, very similar to how Terra is. I do think that the PvP is probably going to be amazing, actually, with the combat system in this game. And the game is focused on acquiring different mounts and utilizing them, how they move, their different abilities, because there is mounted combat, and there is a pet system, and there's like these passive and active attributes to these creatures that you are taming, and there's different like ways that they operate. I think there's like swimming mounts, there's running mounts, there's like hopping mounts. Like I don't know if there's gonna be like a jumping mount that allows you to leap, but there is definitely at least flying mounts. And I don't know how all of that really works. That's definitely end game content, but that is what you're looking forward to. I mean, it's the namesake. The game is called Riders of Icarus. That is what's to be expected, right? And I think from one of the trailers, I saw that it looked like there's going to be flying open world. I don't know if it's open world, but there's going to be flying dungeon-ish bosses that you need parties to actually combat. So I don't know if there's going to be giant aerial warfare or something like that, but the game is kind of, alluding to that. It's like, that's what it wants to do and wants to be. However, first impressions, I don't know if it is that. I don't know if it will be that, but, that's what's to look forward to. I should be fair and mention that. But even in saying that, even though I didn't get to taste pretty much any of that, I am actually still impressed with the game, even though all I did was usual questing, usual combat. Like, I just did the usual things. And the game is incredibly linear, like from character creation to where I am now, which is like the second zone. I don't even think it's really the second zone. It's still in the first zone. I'm still learning the game, like the bare bones of the game. And I'm still having a lot of fun. And I feel like there's still a lot of depth and a lot that I need to learn, and I want to learn. It's not just like convoluted like stuff. It's not just noise and static in the distance of complicated mechanics. It's stuff that I very much feel, and something that, like, as I'm playing, I definitely am enjoying it because I feel like I'm learning. And I feel like, yeah, I'm getting better. Whoa, this is awesome. Like, I'm actually getting skillful at this game, which is something that I don't know, I haven't felt like that in so long. Since Black Desert, actually. Black Desert, you learn the combos, the mechanics, the physics of the world. Like, it feels really good learning the game, and that's like the fun of the game. Gaming the game! Anyways, so this game is actually pretty similar in that respect. If you liked playing Black Desert, at least as a first impressions, your first couple of hours, you're gonna enjoy this game. Though this game is not a sandbox game at all, and its combat is a little bit different. So I guess that's where we should start, right? Let's talk about the combat. Okay, so Riders of Icarus does have mounted combat, but I didn't really get to do that, and I don't think as a new player you get to experience too much of that, because when you get mounts or you tame these creatures, they have to be leveled up, and then through leveling up, they get their different abilities. So at first, they're kind of just pets, they're kind of just mounts, but then you get different abilities. I think pretty quickly, because at level 5, I think all of them get their first combat ability. Other than that, I think they get like some buffs and stuff like that. So we won't really be talking about mounted combat, but we will be talking about the assassin and how the assassin operates, because I played the assassin pretty much only. I thought it would be a good test, because when you do your character creator, you can actually see like a little image of what some of the abilities look like, what the gameplay is going to look like. And the assassin was like jumping through the air, doing double jumps and like doing all sorts of crazy dashes, slicing and dicing. And yeah, I wanted to play that, and I thought that was a good way to try to make or break the physics and, really learn the game and see its potential. And it's also the most difficult class to learn, by the way, guys, if you want to jump into it. So the Assassin I thought would be a good pick, and that's all I played since the alpha. That's all I've been playing now. I should probably go back and try out some other classes, but I've been loving the Assassin. So that's basically where my viewpoint, where it's coming from. And I say that because I don't know if the Mage is a lot more static. I don't know if the Tank class is, or the Priest class. I don't know how those classes play, but from what I've seen, it looks like pretty much everyone, it kind of plays in a way that's very mobile. You're not just sitting in one place at any time, and if you do, you're going to get nuked and dead. So yeah, basically though, I'm going to be talking about the Assassin and why I personally am having so much fun with this game, though your experience might be a little bit different depending on your class and how you approach the game. So this is how I approached the game, okay? I jumped into the game, you do like the little cinematic tutorial thing, The gameplay was really dull. It was pretty average at best, at most. And I mean, I could kind of see the game as like, oh, it's like a tab targeting, pseudo tab targeting thing. Oh, by the way, guys, whenever you do jump into the game, you could choose to play as the usual tab targeting or action combat, which kind of just disguises the tab targeting. But in the end, the game is a tab targeting game. So when you jump into the game for the first time, you're going to see that, yeah, okay, it's kind of usual, but it's not standstill. It is not. There's a lot of abilities that are very mobile and very explosive. Though, coming from me, a competitive Guild Wars 2 PvPer, you know, I have a certain standard for gameplay. In this game, at first I was like, it's not quite reaching it. You know, it's not quite as, it doesn't have the momentum, it's not as fluid. You know, there was sort of a stickiness to the game. But once you actually get into the game and you start learning your combos, which Guild Wars 2 definitely does not really have at all, it really feels actually very good. If I could compare this combat system, it actually reminds me a lot of Wushu games. So like Age of Wushu, literally, and then also Blade and Soul or Swordsman Online. Games where it's not, like, you can move definitely very rapidly in between attacks. A lot of attacks do actually move your character, but for the most part, you're kind of like stuck. Like some attacks like just kind of stick you. And that's because the game is very combo oriented. So sometimes I'll do a dash attack, but then I'll try to do an auto attack, and I'm not, like, it'll take a second for the auto attack to commit. And at first I was like, well, that's kind of shitty, but it's because certain attacks are just a little bit more fluid before or after other attacks. Not only that, but some attacks literally transform after doing certain other attacks, okay? So for the assassin, which is, you're supposed to be incredibly fluid, and if you're not, you're so squishy that you'll literally die in sometimes 2 hits. That's right, guys. The game is so difficult that you will die, and you will die fast if you are not actually doing stuff. If you're not moving, if you're not committing your combos correctly. Like, it's not just about doing more DPS faster, it's about, you know, because these abilities, they actually move you, or they stick you. If you're not doing them appropriately, then you're gonna be too sticky, or you're gonna be dashing off into the distance, and you're gonna run into a bunch of enemies. That totally didn't happen to me a couple times. Yep, it did, okay. Anyways, so yeah, you need to actually be aiming, focusing, and even though it is tab targeting, you need to you gotta get good, dude. You gotta get good, and that's basically all I can say, okay? So it is tab targeting, but the way you chain different abilities and how they move you and how they operate physically within the game world and how you dodge different other monster abilities, it's all very important. But okay, as the assassin, I'll give you an example. So I have one ability that is sort of like a double hit. I press one button, I right click, and it attacks, and then it does a second attack. It does a lot of damage, okay? But it doesn't, you know, it kind of sticks me. I can't really do too much while attacking. I can't do another dash. I can't jump. I can't dodge. Like, if I do that attack, I'm kind of a sitting duck, which I don't want to be because I'll die in a couple hits. So what you can do is that attack actually modifies if you do a dodge attack, a dodge maneuver, anytime before, and you kind of get a little bit of leeway with like a 1 second time frame. So what I do is I jump into a fight, I chain myself in, which is a pretty cool attack. I press I think 4 or 5. I throw my chain, I pull myself to the enemy, and then what I do is I do just one auto attack, and then I dodge to the side. So I dodge their attack. And then what I do is I press my right click, which is my double attack. However, now that I dodged, it modified it to where it's an instantaneous double attack, and it's also a dash. So I dash through them. Now that happened, I'm a little bit past them, so I can't just do a normal auto attack. So what I do is my number 3, and my 3 is a dash attack. And if you do that at a certain point, you can actually go through them. So I dash, and I go through them again. And then I dodge their attack, because at this point, they probably refocused, and they're going to attack me. And sometimes I'll take some damage. If it's a normal auto attack, I will take damage. It's gonna hurt, it's gonna suck, but so there is definitely some checking with gear. You need to stay mobile, and if you are gonna do flurry of combos, you're not invincible, which is very much the case in games like Dragon Nest or Black Desert, where like if you just do or commit your combos perfectly, then nothing will touch you because you're just doing so much damage that you're CCing all over the place. This game's not like that. And normally that'd be a bad thing because it's not a physical game. In Dragon Nest, you can knock things in the air from auto attacks, and that's really cool. It's physical and you can juggle people. But in this game, you know, at first glance, it seems like it's kind of simpler. And this is going to go for every mechanic in the game, but guys, I could probably talk for hours about this. But so at first glance, it seems like, okay, it's kind of simple. He's going to do an auto attack. It's an undodgeable auto attack. And it is dodgeable if you really try, but basically, yeah. Okay, at this point, an auto attack is going to come, and I can't dodge it. I will have to eat some damage. Of course, I'm going to do more damage, so I'm fine with that. But Normally that would seem really bad, but that's kind of part of the game. It's part of the focus of the game. Like it's give and take, and the fact that you can't CC everything just by doing combo, like just memorizing combos is not you getting good at the game, okay? So you have to actually play the game. You have to actually realize how much damage you can take, how much damage you can give, when to give and take, you know, stuff like that. So that's part of the game. It's the strategy and tactics instead of just mechanics, instead of just smashing buttons. So this is not a brawler. This is not like a fighting game. It's not a true action combat game. It's not. And I think it's actually better for that. Yes, it's a tab targeting game, but there's so much to it. Anyways, continuing on. At this point, he's either going to do an auto attack or he's going to do a big attack. If he's doing a big attack, then my combo will dodge because I'm just doing my dodge attacks. No, though, I don't have to just be doing my dodge attacks, but I tend to do that. Okay, so if he did a big attack, I'll dodge it. I'll have time to, you know, literally double jump out of the way or something. But anyways, he's going to do an auto attack. I'm going to take some damage, but it's okay because once he does that, then I'm just free to just continue. I can double jump, do my chain attack again, and dash through him, and then dash again, and dash, and dash, and dash. Slice and dice, and I can do that. I will take some damage. It's give and take, but which abilities, which damage you dodge is important, because you know you do have certain cooldowns. You can only dodge so much, so often. You can only use certain abilities, blah blah blah. Usual MMO stuff, but at the same time, even though like cooldowns are a usual MMO thing, the fact that it actually fucking matters in this game is really important. You know, like which move I use to combo really matters. If I decided not to dash and I decided to use a, I don't know, like my auto attack, or if I decided just to stand still to do a big damage attack, or maybe potentially do a CC attack, if they themselves were doing a really big attack and I didn't stop it with CC, or if I maybe potentially if I tried to dash through and they did some big CC themselves and knocked me down, then I'd die. So there's a lot of choice in this, and I've only had like 6 abilities, guys. And the game starts you out with like 4. And already there's different combos you can do. There's different play styles. You can, like I said, with the assassin, I can just do dodges and dashes attacks. I don't have to do my other standstill attacks. I don't have to do my other sort of like attacks that really put me out in the open. If I'm playing in a party, hell yeah, dude, I'm just gonna DPS them down. But if I want to survive, I need to do my combos that move me so that I can continuously dodge. I just wanted to say that. Really wanted to talk about at least how I was playing with the assassin. It might be true for every class. Maybe every class you can be potentially very mobile, or potentially you can stand still and just nuke things down. I don't know how other classes play. All I know is that the assassin is hella mobile, and that is why I was really enjoying the game. Even though there's really not that many skill shots at all to be dodging. The monsters don't really skill shot ever, basically. There are different, like sometimes a monster might whirlwind or something and you have to back up, but for the most part, I didn't really see skill shots. But the way the game operates, it's almost like everything is a skill shot, kind of, in a way. It's really weird and kind of hard to describe. The only way I can describe it is that it's actually kind of similar to Dark Souls with the tracking spells, where the faster you're moving, then the harder the spell has to, like the spell, it kind of curves. Like everything does curve. Like an arrow doesn't shoot straight. It does kind of home in, but it doesn't perfectly home in. So if you're moving pretty quickly, you will dodge it, or like it'll miss. It won't track you, and it'll miss and fly off in the distance. That's kind of how the game works. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. As an assassin, I have to sometimes dodge certain directions in order to evade the tracking. Like if I just dodge forward, like Guild Wars, I could just dodge forward. You know, even in Dark Souls, you can do that. In this game, if I were to dash forward, that arrow is gonna hit me right in the face, and it's gonna fucking suck. And there's actually a monster that shoots arrows, and it takes off half my health. But yeah, the game is really freaking difficult. Not just because the assassin's hard to learn, which it is, and learning the different survival combos was kind of, it took me a little bit to get used to. But I'm saying the game is hard generally because things hit hard, you don't have much health, and overall, you can potentially be flooded by enemies. Now, the aggro radius isn't realistic at all. It's not very big at all, so you can sneakity sneak. And sometimes you would find that it's necessary to sneak around, which is really cool, especially, I think this is actually a really good way to segue into this, especially whenever you're trying to tame a creature, okay? Like, you need to be really strategic, really maybe more tactical about this shit, okay? So, say there is a wolf in the back that you want, there's a fucking wolf den, and you want the big wolf in the back. Well, whenever you try to mount this thing, which you have to go into a sneak stance and then jump on it, so for one, you have to either kill everything around it or sneak past them, and then once you do mount this creature, which you still have to sneak by and not get aggroed by, like, it's going to buck around, it's going to jump around, and other monsters are going to come and attack you. So you have to be strategic about what creatures you attack and aggro, because the game is very hard. If you get attacked while trying to mount something, you're probably, maybe potentially going to die. If you're just trying to clear everything out, you might aggro everything while you're clearing and then die. So it's really strategic, really thoughtful, and especially as the assassin, since you can't heal yourself. Yeah, there is a stamina bar that you have to mind as well, though I don't know how other classes operate, if they use mana or something. I'm going to assume it's the stamina bar. But there is a lot to think about in the game, and I do like that. So even though it's not like Dragon Nest, where you can just run and gun and, you know, monsters are flying in the air, or even to the extent of something like Terra. You know, Terra is still a little bit more action-based. I would say that this game is somewhere in between, okay? It's somewhere in between where Terra is and somewhere where like Age of Wushu, which Age of Wushu is really like standstillish, but it's extremely tactical, you know, with its combos and its rock, paper, scissors abilities. It's somewhere in between these two games. So it basically has the tactics and strategy of Age of Wushu, which is super deep, really complicated game, but it still has like the game feel. It has like the physicality of Terra, and I'd say even more, man. It's ridiculous. You're all over the place, at least with the assassin. But then again, at first glance, you're not going to really see that. It just looks like a tab targeting system. However, I will say it is a little bit deeper. Of course, you know, there's still complaints. The monsters don't seem to have that many combos, but then again, a lot of MMOs don't. Almost every MMO I've ever seen, it's like creatures have an auto attack and then maybe one spell that they use. They don't have full combos. I haven't got to play with any bosses yet, so I don't know how they operate, but I'm going to assume it's actually very similar to Terra because of how this game has played out so far. This is a very linear, very theme park or roller coaster style MMO, so I'm expecting that the end game is basically the game. It is pretty cool though to level up. The leveling process is very fun, and like I said, the learning is so fucking cool. Like actually learning this game is fun, but the end game is still, you know, the meat and taters of the title. So Riders of Icarus is still about riding these Icarian Goliaths. Because they're flying, and yeah, they're flying monsters and dragons and stuff. But no, anyways. That is the meat and taters. Mounting, guys, I guess we should probably talk about this. Mounting is pretty easy. Just sneak, jump on them, and there's like a little mini game. It's incredibly RNG based, so very Pokemon-esque. I don't know if there's any modifiers. I think there is actually modifiers. There's items you can use to help taming, but it's not anything complicated. Like it's not like if there's a wolf, you have to feed it a specific kind of meat. I don't think it's anything like that. So, you know, that's kind of tragic. It's a very actually simple mini game. But like I said previously, you know, depending on what creature you want to tame, the areas that it's in is very dangerous. So just to get to the monster is kind of harsh. And some creatures you have to probably remount over and over and over again because of the RNG. And they can attack you once you fall off of them. So you have to be careful. You know, like there is still a level of danger. There is like this fear that you will have as a player when going about it. It's not just, you know, flipping a coin. It's a little bit more complicated and definitely a little bit more dire if the coin doesn't land on the side that you want it to. So you got to think about it. You got to use your brain, risk, and even though, you know, there's a lot of RNG in the game, it's sort of like controlling the RNG or like gaming the RNG is kind of part of the game. So, you know, like Pokemon. It's kind of... basically, man, this is like a grown-up, very serious version of Pokemon, but then again, Pokemon is a grown-up Pokemon, so this game isn't quite going to beat Pokemon, but you do get, it's not just mounts, though. You do actually tame monsters, creatures, they're called familiars, and you can actually turn them into pets. So there's that extra strategic element where, is this creature better as a mount? Or, you know, of course, there's the question, what creature should actually be my pet? What creature should be my mount? And then, like, if you have a certain playstyle, like, okay, I like, I'm an assassin, right? So I want lots of crits. So I might want to have a wolf as a mount, or I should have the wolf as a pet, because the pet, you know, you can still use the abilities and get the passive buffs. So I'll have the wolf howl, which gives me the crit, but then my mount should be a really, really fast mount, so I can get in there or get out really fast and be an assassin. So maybe if you are a tank, you still need to also get in fast so you can be the first one in, right? So you don't want to turtle as a mount because it's really slow. So you might want it as a pet though, so you can still get the defensive bonuses, and then you can have a fast mount that you ride or fly or whatever. I'm just saying that's, you know, part of the game. So there's pets, there's mounts. You do have to actually tame them. The taming is kind of fun. It's still, you know, it's kind of shallow in a way. It's a mini game, but it's, I think, more interesting than some other games. Now, this game does kind of parallel Dragon's Prophet in a way, but I think Riders of Icarus is definitely probably just the overall better version of Dragon's Prophet. Yeah, I think in every way, Dragon's Prophet, this is like Dragon's Prophet 2.0, maybe, in a way. I will say, Terra actually just implemented flying mounts, but this game is basically focused entirely on that fact, you know, like the flying, and it's kind of selling itself on that. It's called Riders of Icarus. So the game is literally like trying to shove that down our throats. I haven't really got to experience that too much. You kind of just get a little taste through a couple of quests. And overall, I'll just say this. The flying is probably, the way it's set up is kind of like World of Warcraft. It looks like it's real flying, like the animations and everything. And I will say, when you're actually mounted on something, there is some very interesting mechanics with how the mounts operate, depending on what kind of mount it is. Like, for instance, it's not going to be like Terra where you're instantly snapping back and forth. But then again, at the same time, Terra's flying is like literal gliding. Like if you dip down, you go faster. This game's not like that. Even though it might look like that, the flying doesn't, like, you don't go faster by diving, kind of. I think there might be there is a speed boost, but it's really more like World of Warcraft's flying, where it's sort of like floating, really. And I think that's probably the case because there is going to be really epic flying combat. So even though it's not as physical as Terra's flying, which is really funny coming from Terra's mount system, even though it's not like that, I think that it's like that because of the combat system and the mounted combat. And every class and every mount has like different abilities and stuff. So I'm really excited to get into that, but I did just want to give that another shout out that, yeah, there's a lot to the game that I haven't explored. And just seeing like I have 6 abilities, guys. And I've gushed like for 19 minutes already about the combat system. So with 6 abilities and the different combos and my experience, there's